Do you wish somebody wrote down the recipe for your parenting challenges? Did you want tips and tricks to become a better mama for you and your babies? I know I do. If you're a mother who feels that you are doing the best you can with the hands you've been dealt, but you're still getting it done, then this podcast is for you. I'm so glad you tuned in to Nailed It Motherhood because we might have the recipe that nobody wrote down.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Nailed It Motherhood podcast. I am your host with the love, Tamara Eldridge. We are back and we are taking down all the recipes that our amazing moms and dads have been cooking with. I'm telling you, if you are just now starting to tune in, then you have to go back to the beginning and hear all the unique ways we're nailing it as parents. And yes, babe, we are all nailing it. Before I introduce our guest today, I have to take the time to say thank you all my listeners for investing in me and my podcast baby. We absolutely love the growth that we're seeing and we still have so much room for more. So make sure you like, make sure you comment, and please rate and share this episode with your village. Now, I gave our girl some time before she's in the spotlight. I am so excited to bring to the show a single mom whose passion is all about birth work and Black love. I want to read her own words first to you before I introduce her. So, buckle up because this one is a good one. She said, "The way I parent and the way I show up as a birth worker are deeply connected. My values, my culture, my calling. They're all reflected in how I raise my children and how I support families through some of their most vulnerable and powerful moments. And that actually makes me even more passionate about both. I don't feel like I need a separate passion because I'm already living mine every day." So, listeners, we want to welcome to Nailed It Motherhood podcast, Tiffany Lawrence. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you.
Tiffany, one thing I have to share with you is that I know you're a healer simply by the way you speak. And, today is the first that we've actually heard each other's voices, but through our conversation, I know you have so much power in you, and I'm very, very, very excited that this is the platform that you wanted to share what's in you. How's that? But before we get, no problem. I have to ask you, have you ever published a book before?
And it's funny that you bring that up because May is World Doula Month, and I released an eBook on the 1st of May just to pay homage to World Doula Month. And it's just to answer the question of, do I want to do doula work? And once you get over that question, that hump that you want to do doula work, I bring you through that journey. First I make sure that that's what you want to do by a series of questions in my ebook. Then I go through the healing journey because we can't walk into these spaces without being healed ourselves. And then I break down what a doula is and the history of a doula and the relationship between doulas and the midwives. That's important. And then I bring you through that journey of starting your business, whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit, whether it's, you're stumped on naming your business. I have all types of tips. I have tax write-off tips. I have some checklists. I covered everything just to make that journey easy because I know how it was when I started almost 14 years ago.
That's amazing. I love the breakdown of things that you have in your book. And I have no intention on giving birth again. Hopefully God is on my side on this one. But I'm very interested to see what the book has to say.
If so, you got to do it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, wow. Favoritism, yes. So before we move on to our topic tale, I hear an accent in your voice when you speak. Can you tell our listeners where you're from and represent, boo?
I am from New York, specifically the Bronx, the heart of it all, the home of hip hop, the concrete jungle. It's the apple. I tell people I'm a rotten apple. And I'm a first generation American. My parents and their siblings were born in England, and my maternal grandmother was Indian Jamaican. My maternal grandfather was Cuban Jamaican, and my paternal grandparents were Jamaican. So that's me. You gonna get a little spice, and everything nice.
Nice.
If that's how I give it to you that time.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And that was not a part of the plan, but I heard it when you were saying cool. Like I was like, baby. Like
sometimes it slips out, and I'm like,
I love it though. You gotta represent
every day.
So that actually helps me move into our next segment, which is our Tabu Tale. This is our episodic tradition. Every episode, I get to share a little bit about my baby girl to the world, and she's a fighter. Not physically yet, I hope, but she is a fighter. So one day, she was playing around with my boo, because he likes to play with her and mess with her and teach her how to fight, teach her how the proper way to box, tell her how not to break her thumbs and all that jazz. And she kept going. She had fist up. She was ready. She was like, yeah, you want a knuckle sandwich? You want a knuckle sandwich? Mess her with him. Now, mind you, she's 5, and she just got all this, like, she's learning so much, and it's all coming out at the same time. And I was laughing at her, and I said, you know what? I've never been in a fight. And she tilted her head, and she was like, you want to start now? I said, oh, hey. So I was teaching her how my grandmother taught me how to fight, and that's when it came up. My grandmother taught me, don't fight, just throw your fist out in front of you. Just throw him. And he looked at me like I was crazy. So that's whatever I said. I was never in a fight before. And my 5-year-old decided she wanted to try me. So it was a quick Tabu Tale, but I felt like people needed to know my child is crazy, okay? She is crazy. Thank you for listening to my... Oh yeah, she gonna be prepared. I might have to send her your way, because I know Bronx, New York is ready to go, ready to blow whenever.
Every day.
Every day. So thank you for listening to my Tabu Tale.
No problem.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed a little bit about who she is. She's got a little spice, and she's ready for the world. But
maybe when she becomes a famous boxer, I could be like, I remember your story when you were 5.
Thank you. Speak life into it.
Right.
Speak life. It does. I love it. So, as you speak life into my baby, I think it's time for you to speak about your life. But before we do that, I think that your bio is important before we hear your history segment, because you stated that you're usually behind the scenes, pushing others to the forefront. But all I heard when I was writing your script, all I heard was my time. This is your time, Tiffany, to take the stage. I'm very, very excited for you. I'm very happy, and I am one of the platforms that you're doing that on. So I'm going to read your bio so that our listeners get to know the power behind the mic, and then the next voice that they will hear take the stage is none other than the beautiful, full-haired head Tiffany Lawrence.
Yeah, there's a lot underneath this rap.
Yes. Okay, Bronx born, Cuban Jamaican, Indian Jamaican roots, first generation American, hostess folk, and go dreaming. Tiffany Lawrence is a doula mama with a lot of love, a lot of lessons, and maybe 1 or 2 petty jokes about the birth world tucked in her back pocket. As a single black mom of 3 boys, y'all, she has crushed every narrative meant to limit her. She built her birth business, Motherly Health Childbirth Services, and today we are going to hear about her personal parenting journey and her business. So, to the floor, Ms. Tiffany Lawrence. I'm going to set it in.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. As I, mentioned before, I've always found a way to sneak out of being in the front, or my schedule didn't allow me to be in the front, but I kept seeing this, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send my information in. If I get picked, I get picked. If I don't, I don't. But everything aligns, and I'm here, and I'm excited, and I'm grateful, and I'm ready to share. Hopefully, I inspire some doulas.
Yes, I love it. Let's go.
Okay. So, as you know, I'm Tiffany Lawrence. I am a single mom of three boys who are now teenagers who are going to be 19, 17, and 16 soon. Um, my father and mother were born in England. My grandparents, my maternal grandparents, came to this country with each other and their children, and they built an amazing life that they benefited from. My parents benefited from, my mother and her siblings benefited from, then the grandchildren, and then the great grandchildren. So hard work has always been instilled in me. I grew up very, very close to my maternal grandfather. I actually called him daddy for 22 years, and he never corrected me. And I had a wonderful stepfather, a wonderful experience with my uncles, my godfather. You know, I just had that beautiful masculine support growing up. So when it comes to Black love, I'm so pro Black love, if anybody knows me. So let's wheel it back. I spent my summers in Jamaica with my grandparents, especially my grandfather, and I spent my summers on a farm with his cousin. So I grew up with, we don't call it cowboys, but I grew up watching my grandfather like fight bulls and wild hogs. And here's a little funny thing, you know, when little girls wanted ponies, I actually had a pet donkey in Jamaica that I got to go and take care of every summer when I went to spend time on my aunt's farm. So let's go ahead and speed it up. So now I have had my third son, who was unexpected, unplanned home birth. And anybody who knows me, they know that I am very spontaneous. So they kind of weren't surprised that something like that happened to me, for me to give birth at home by myself, just in the middle of the night. So my friend of mine was like, why don't you just become a doula? And I'm like, what the heck is a doula? And we did some research and I found an organization that I loved. And in 2012, I completed my training and I started doula work, but I juggled being a single mom, being a college student working on my second degree, as well as doing doula work. And when I would meet new parents and I'd be so excited to share their birthing experience, I realized that I was met with trauma and loss. And then I saw that there was a pattern. And as I dug deeper into birth work, I realized that just like so many other things, what Black and Brown people are facing was systematic racism, negligence, and it just made me feel like I had to like leave school, leave my degree, and dive in full time. And when I dived in full time, my fourth baby was born, Motherly Touch Childbirth Services. And in the midst of me running that business, I still had to raise my children, who I just want to thank for that journey because they compromised a lot. You know, I started off in 2012 and my children were fairly little. They were all under 5. People who know me in birth work, who see me in events and trainings, they knew that my kids would be in the corner somewhere with tablets and snacks while I did my thing, and they never bothered me. So it's like my parenthood and birth work kind of came together so beautifully because I never had to pick which one that I had to dedicate myself to, because my children allowed their mother to practice this and they allowed me to grow, even if it was a 16-hour car ride across the country because I had a training that I really wanted to go to, or I had a birth that that somebody wanted me to support. You know, my children never gave me a hard time. As long as there was snacks and Wi-Fi, I was good. You know, outside of that, then we would have had a problem. But as long as Wi-Fi and food, they never bothered me. So I just want to thank them for that. And let's go back to my parenting. I would say that my parenting is because of my grandparents, especially my grandfather, who I call daddy, as I said. I was a daddy's girl for 22 years until he passed. And when I say that, you know, people make fun of our relationship because it was something similar to Hillary and Uncle Bay. I can't even count how many times I was told no and how many times it stayed no. But outside of being my financial support, he was my travel buddy. He was the person that like I go to about everything. Like, how many girls could say that their grandfather or their dad took them to their first gynecologist appointment? I can. He didn't know at the time what it was, but he took me. That's how close we were. And to add, I have three sons that are all have a name that's tied to him, whether it's his first name, whether it's his middle name, or his father's name. I paid homage to my grandfather by naming my children after him. And when it comes to our relationship as well, like, it was very playful. And I keep that in mind because I know being a single parent, especially when you have multiples, especially when you have boys, especially when they become a certain age, can be so stressful. But I always remembered that relationship between me and my grandfather. So when people applaud me or people be like, oh, I make it seem easy, it's because of that relationship. That relationship was the foundation of who I am as a parent, who I am as a mother, how I show up for births, how I work, because I watched my grandparents work very hard, especially my grandfather, who actually, back in the early 90s, he had his plumbing company, he owned a nightclub with his cousins, and then he worked for General Motors as a mechanical engineer. So I really saw that work ethics. I really saw that drive. So he instilled it in me, maybe not even knowing, because he didn't want me working. And I was 21 when I got my first job. And I'm like, I have a whole kid now. And, he was just like, just finished school. So he knows how much I looked up to him, but I wish he would know, like, I wish he was here to see exactly how much I looked up to him, having teenage kids now and running a business, because, like, he's always in the back of my mind. To talk about him is an honor, because anybody who knew my grandfather would say that he was an amazing man. And we had a little joke, as I said before, people will compare our relationship to Hillary and Uncle Banks. And I would ask for something and he'd be like, oh, you have champagne tasting beer money. And I would reply to him, I'm like, actually, Daddy, I have water money, but I'll be always good as long as you're around. So, that was our little joke, before I got whatever I wanted, of course. I'm grateful for that foundation, because a lot of people didn't have that foundation that I had. So it made being a mother, especially being a single mother journey, that much easier, because I would hear people crack jokes and be like, I'm the happiest single mother that they've seen. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I guess it's good. So I feel like it's so easy to be frustrated and upset. And this is not fair that I have to be on this journey by myself, because I hear it so often, especially in some of the rooms and events that I'm in. And I understand the weight of being a single parent. I truly, truly get it. When I had a newborn, I had a 10-month-old and an almost 3-year-old. So I get it. But what people have to understand is the outcome outweighs what you're going through right now, and that's what got me through this journey of being a single mother, because I knew that my growth, the growth of my children, the foundation of my children was way more important than any obstacle that I had to go through being a single mom. And let me add this too, that I've been homeschooling my children since about 2016. So we spend a lot of time with each other. So I am very familiar with the obstacles that you go through being around your kids all day. And people will be like, you're not tired of being with your kids all day? And I'm like, no, like, we understand each other. We grew together. When I had my first son, I was almost 21 years old. So I literally grew as an adult at the same time as my children grew. So we understood each other. And I grew my children with communication. I'm very, very open with my children. Once they turned 13, that communication got a little bit more colorful. And once they got older, they really got to meet me, where I'm not candy coating things. I'm cussing. I'm using colorful languages. I'm cracking dirty jokes. Like, I always wanted them to know that no matter what, my door is always open. I'm your mother. I won't play with you. You know, don't test it. But if anything, I need you to understand that you can always come to me, because I'm going to be the first person to find a way out. I'm going to be the first person. If you need money, I'm going to put it up. If you need somebody to sign for something, I'm going to sign for it. So I feel like I gave them the balance of being that cool mom, but also giving them a place to, okay, this is where I'm safe. I could go ahead and talk. So I think that's important. And as I said before, it's hard being a single parent, and I get it. But you have to understand that a lot of times, being a single parent, our struggles and our stresses hinder the growth of our children. And we do not want generational trauma. So that's why I say your outcome is way more important than any obstacle that you're going through. So just keep that in mind. Like I talk to a lot of parents, especially a lot of women who are raising sons, and I hear the frustration and I get it. I so get it. I'm not saying that you're alone. I'm not saying that you're making it up, but sometimes you got to step back and just breathe. I have an 18-year-old, I have a 16-year-old, I have a 15-year-old, and there's times that I just got to laugh it off. Because if I don't laugh it off, I'm gonna lose my cool, and that's not the route that I want to go to. When I was raising my children, I made sure that they had positive Black figures in their life, whether it was a man or a woman. I made sure. Anybody who knows me would tell you I don't watch reality TV, especially when Black folks is acting a fool. I'm not watching it. When my children were younger, if it was ignorant, if it was ghetto, I didn't want it. I didn't want it because I wanted them to be exposed from young what it was to be a powerful man, an educated man, what it was to be an amazing woman, a go-getter, a woman, So it's a lot of things that you have to tweak being a parent. And I promise you, if you just wheel it back and look at the surrounding and look at certain things that you expose yourself to, you'll realize like, okay, I can do this. Because if I could do it, I know anybody else can do it. I moved in 2015. I moved from all my family and friends. I lived in New York for 28 years. I moved to Texas. I'd never been to Texas before I moved. I moved with 3 children, and I believe it was 3 children under 6, maybe 5. And, people be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. You don't know what you could do unless you try it. You don't know what you can do unless you just, take that leap of faith. Take that leap of faith. If it works out, beautiful. If it doesn't, then guess what? You move on. But you don't know your strength. You don't know what you can accomplish if you're not willing to take that step. And I know a lot of people have comfort zones, and I get it. I get it. Nobody wants to fail, but you don't know if you can achieve if you don't try. So, as a single parent, especially, that's the downfall because we're our child's only, figure to look at. Unfortunately, everything's on us. So we have to keep it together. But at the same time, we have to see what's best for us too. Because I know they used to say that, you put your children first, but you really don't. You put yourself first. Because if you're on your last limb, how can you show up for your children? And this is the same thing I tell my clients, especially during postpartum, because, there's so many families who run themselves ragged because they're like, the baby, the baby, the baby. And I'm like, if you don't pour into yourself, your baby is not going to get the best version of you. Your baby's not going to benefit. So think of yourself, try to change this mindset because, especially as Black single mothers, they want to throw us under the bus for any little thing. They never talk about the absent parent. It's always us. But also on the flip side, I'm a strong believer that a toxic mother who is raising her child and constantly there does way more damage than a father that wasn't there. Because this child is constantly getting this every day. And as mothers, we're the first teachers. So what are we teaching our children? With that said, I didn't have the healthiest relationship with my mother. And that's why I speak so highly of my grandparents, because I tell people all the time, my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, Maurice Young and Serene Young saved me because I could have been a statistic. I could have been the same parent that people speak of because I was young. I was, a Black single mom. I had multiple children. I had, boys. I beat every statistic because not only was that foundation solid by my grandparents, but I knew that I wanted more for my children. I knew I didn't want to see my children from across the table. I heard stories of cousins and friends and ex-boyfriends who would share their story, and I'm like, okay, check. Can't do that. Can't do that. Okay, as a single mother, I can't work 3 jobs. Okay, because that's going to leave him too much time to get in trouble. So it's like I feel like when I was growing up, majority of my cousins were guys. My best friend is a guy. I grew up with my stepfather, my father, my grandfathers, my uncles, my godfather. And I really, really feel like that foundation prepared me for raising boys. Because when men applaud you, when men say you're doing a good job, listen, that's the highest flattery that I can get. Because as I said before, society be quick to throw us under the bus, ladies, being single mothers, when a lot of us are just trying to make things happen out of nothing. So I'm not going to say that it's not hard. I'm not going to say that it's not a struggle. And I just want to applaud any parent. It's not even just single mothers, because I know single fathers out there. I want to applaud you on your journey. Because guess what? Just like the absent parent, you could have walked away too. Because I know parents who both walked away. So I just want to applaud you on your journey. But let's tighten up. Let's do better. We see so many of our children, out here just being lost, just slipping through the cracks. And we need to bring this village back. We need to take accountability. We need to understand where we're going wrong and fix that. This generation, like, they need us. They need us. So with that said, my parenting and doula work, it definitely comes together beautifully. And I am honored for the families who have allowed me into their space and have taken my advice. And I also went as far as creating a new parent education, because so many people were just comfortable with, expressing their journeys with me and their struggles. So I'm like, okay, let me find a way to help, because it's easy to say, hey, you're the problem. You're doing this wrong, without a solution. So my new parent education is based around, that solution. And it brings in dad too, because this birth experience is not just mom's, it's dad's too. So when I practice with a family, I make sure it's a unity. I tell people all the time, I might be a single parent, but I'm not one of these, I don't need a man, or I'm going to exclude the man. Oh, no. I'm going to bring him on in, because this is his experience too. So I am all for Black love. I'm all for Black men. If anybody knows me, knows I go hard for my Black men. As I said before, I grew up a daddy's girl. I grew up with a bunch of guys. Wherever I'm in the room and I need to speak up for you guys, I'm speaking up. I'm playing devil's advocate. So I just want to, bring that conversation. I feel like so many podcasts that we see is man versus woman, and mostly it's Black man versus Black woman. And I don't want to see that anymore. I'm trying to see the unity. I want a conversation. I've also teach postpartum sex education, which when I first started teaching it about 6 to 8 years ago, I believe, maybe it was 7.5 years closer. When I started doing postpartum sex education, people were just like, oh, it's sex. And I'm like, no, it's way more than just sex that I teach. I teach now getting familiar with your new self, now getting familiar with your partner who's just had a baby, now getting familiar with dad who doesn't know his position in this all, because now you're breastfeeding. So dad doesn't know what to do when you're breastfeeding, because he thought he was going to be able to feed the baby. So like, I not only is postpartum sex about sex, because I need you to have sex in order for me and my, fellow birth workers to stay in business, but I need that connection, because so many times we see couples who have been together for years and then they have a kid and then they split. The kid is not the reason why they split. It's the lack of communication. It's the loss of connection. So that's where postpartum sex comes in. And I'm very comfortable talking about sex. So it's not your typical postpartum sex education. If you have taken one, if you have a mind, if you have an idea of what it is, trust me, it's not your typical. It's very colorful. It's very fun. I just want to bring that back. I just want to bring that connection back, because, it's, somebody needs to start somewhere. We can't keep saying there's a problem without a solution, and nobody gonna come save us but us. So there you go.
So, girlfriend,
Listen, I know that was a lot.
No, it was great. It was fantastic. And you ended with what I was thinking, like, we can't keep saying there's a problem without a solution. So we need to really tighten it up, and we need to do the work so that we can heal ourselves. And I love it. Like,
each other at that. Because sometimes we got to give each other our space. Like, I know a lot of Black men always say, well, a woman doesn't want to hear how my day is if it's really bad. And I'm like, well, that's not the woman for you.
That's not. Because we want to be that shoulder. That's right. Yeah.
Because we can't. I said we're nurturers. Like, that's our job. Even when we saw Even when we saw slavery depictions, that woman was hovering over him. She was taking care of him. Like, that's our job. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
So if that's not the person who's giving it to you, then that's not the person for you. Find somebody else. And don't label us all.
Don't label us all.
Don't label us all.
Ooh, grind my gears.
And as a woman, we also have to understand that, you know, these men are human, especially Black men.
Right.
They're human. They deserve grace. They deserve a space to talk. They deserve to be heard.
Yeah.
They deserve to express their feelings in a healthy manner. You know, there's nothing more sexier than a man who is emotionally intellectual, who can speak his mind without losing his cool and being aggressive and angry and hostile. Like, that shows a lot. And if you have somebody who is expressing themselves like that, we need to be able to give him that floor to do so, and not throw it back when the time, when we have that time to throw it back in their face. Because that's another thing. You know, we have to heal each other. We have to give each other our space.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to one of the first things you said that you really just glossed over. When you had your third child, you said it so nonchalant, like, yeah, because one day I went to the grocery store, then I gave birth to my son by myself at home with nobody else. So, was this intentional? Was it an accident? Tell us this story, because this was how your career got started.
Right. So if anybody knows me, they know that I do not like boring. I don't like a schedule. I don't like to get boxed in. I'm an Aquarius. I'm free spirited. Please don't tell me what to do. Don't come to me with a million questions. So I feel like my birth, especially for my last son, was this like so me. Like, I was home. My grandfather just passed away. My family wasn't here. You know, I was home, and I just happened to go to the bathroom, and I was like, oh, okay. I went and used the bathroom, and I was like, let me take a shower. I feel hot. And I went to go get my stuff, and I'm like, I gotta use the bathroom again? So I went to use the bathroom, and as soon as I sat down on the toilet, my water broke. And all I remember saying was, oh shit, that's not piss. So as soon as the word piss came out my mouth, my baby was coming down. So like, all I could think is like, do I sit here? Do I lay on the ground? I'm like, no, if I lay on the ground, I won't be able to get him. So I just like squatted over the toilet and caught him, made sure he didn't go in the toilet. and it was weird because not only did it birth my journey, but when you're in birth work, you see a lot of birth like this. It's nothing to see a mom give birth on the toilet or give birth in the driveway. So it was just weird that I had this experience, and to be in situations where like, oh, I know what that means. You're going to give birth right here in the driveway. You're not going to make it anywhere. So it's just like, some moms are embarrassed. And I'm like, I had a prom baby. And they're like, what? I'm like, I had my baby on the toilet in the bathroom. And like, I wasn't at prom. I was like, when you hear the story, they go to prom and they have a baby in the bathroom. Yeah. So I'm like, that's my prom baby. Like, I went in the bathroom by myself, and I came out with EMTs and a baby. So
that's awesome. So you say it happens a lot more than we think it happens.
Yeah.
So you're an expert. So tell me, is the process being more complicated because we're at the doctor and we're being forced to lay down, and because, could we just do this naturally because this is what our bodies are meant to do?
Yes, definitely. So of course, just like anything else, there are outliers. There are people who need to be in these hospitals, but birth is not a sickness. It's not a disease. Being pregnant, I should say, is not a sickness or a disease. You normally go to the hospital when you're sick, not feeling good, something hurts, right? So as long as you don't have these, outliers, elements that are stopping you from having a natural birth or a home birth or a non-medical medicated birth or not a C-section, you could do this. You could do this. I was young when I had my third son and I gave birth by myself. I didn't have any medical background. Like I grew up in the house of my grandmother who was in the nursing for maybe 40, 50 years. She was in nurse administration. And before that, I did forget, but before that, before she came to this country, she was a midwife in England. I never found that out until years into me being a doula.
Wow. So
Right.
this is
That's what I say.
What?
Right. But when I became a doula, she didn't know what a doula was. She was like, child, just let's go to nursing school and stop it. And I'm like, I didn't want to go to, okay, so I wanted to be an OBGYN for years.
Wow.
And I graduated high school a year before I was supposed to. I was supposed to graduate 2 years, but my mother was like 15 out of high school. No, just let her do the extra year, which I understood. So I graduated when I was 16 and I went to a medical school interview. Excited. Of course, my grandfather is there with me. He's my road dog. He's the one who took me. So we're excited. And this man is ready to be in debt because he knows that I've been talking about being an OBGYN from I'm a little kid.
That's okay.
I wanted to be a vet. Right. I wanted to be a vet at first because I spent so much time on the farm. But then when they told me I had to put animals to sleep, I'm like, okay, next career. I'm like, that's not going to work. Next career. So I wanted to be an OBGYN because I have experience helping animals give birth on the farm.
Wow.
So I knew that birth was my calling. I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I went to this medical school interview, all excited. And I remember coming out and my dad was like, no medical school? I'm like, yeah, no, it's not for me. Because I'm thinking I'm going to be delivering babies. But in 2003, when I went to this interview, I found out that the OBGYN, or the OB, I should say, didn't have to be present for a vaginal birth during school or during their residency. So you, as a pregnant person, is going to have your baby thinking, oh, I'm going to have a vaginal birth. This is going to be amazing. You could be the first vaginal birth they've ever seen.
Yeah.
So they were glorified surgeons. And I didn't think about the surgery part. All I knew is I wanted to deliver babies.
Yeah.
So like doula work just fell in my lap because I didn't know what a doula was.
Literally.
I didn't find out what a doula was until years later.
Yeah.
So it like fell in my lap and I'm like, okay, cool. So then I played with like, okay, I'll do this because before becoming a doula, I decided I was going to go to nursing school. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to go. I'll just be in labor and delivery because that's the only place I want to be. But so many of my friends and other people I knew who were nurses be like, to get in labor and delivery is hard as heck. So then that's when I was like, oh, well, I'm going to have doula experience. That should help. So I went ahead on my doula journey. I did my prerequisites for nursing and I just fell in love with the work because I'm like, wait a minute. I'm still a part of the birth process. I'm still able to support that natural experience. Even though I'm not catching the baby, I'm helping mom get to that place mentally and emotionally. So it was just like, it was weird how it just found a place for me. And I, almost 14 years in, I'm now given the opportunity to be a midwife assistant. So I'm just like looking at the world, like looking at everything like, holy crap, it's coming all the way back around the way that, where I started. I wanted to catch babies. Now I'm being given the opportunity to really catch babies. So it's like, sometimes you just gotta be like, oh, screw it. This is the path I gotta do. Let me just trust it. And I trusted it. And here I am about to start catching babies soon. So.
Yes. Excellent. I love it. Oh my goodness. You said a lot. I do have a question because when you say that you went to the bathroom and you were like, oh, this is intense. And you like to be fine. I bet because I can see you saying it. That I was at work. I was at work when I went into labor, and like I thought that I was just like, okay, my back hurts, blah blah blah. Oh my God, I have to pee. I have to pee again, and then I'm walking and I start feeling it, and I said, uh-oh. So I get to the bathroom. Look, my birth could have been that easy, and it was 19 hours of labor. Are you kidding me?
Okay, so when people are pregnant and they have all these questions, especially when it gets close. They're nervous, they're panicking, they have a million and one questions. Like, I've answered most of your questions already, but let's go ahead and do it again. Reassuring them. I tell them their best friend is movement and breathing. Movement and breathing. That's it. So, as you know, I have 3 children, and all 3 of my children were vaginal births, no epidural, no other pain medication. So when I tell moms, I'm like, listen, movement and breaths. They're looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, listen, just trust me. And I tell them this.
Yeah.
When I was in A&P, anatomy and physiology in college, I'm a visual learner. And I remember the diagram like it was this morning. And it was about muscle contraction. And they said in order for the muscle to relax, it needs oxygen. Mm-hmm. Okay? So in order for your vagina is a muscle. And if you're screaming, if you're not focused, you're tensing up. Mm-hmm. So you're putting yourself in a whole different realm of pain.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have, doctors who want to intervene because now they're going to tell you your baby's in stress. Oh. The heart rate is dropping, stuff like that. So I'm like, if you're breathing, especially doing the breathing techniques, because there's certain breathing techniques, and it also depends on the stage of labor you're in. So there's different breathing techniques, and those breathing techniques are helping you relax your muscles, your vagina. So when I tell moms that we're not screaming, I know it hurts, but you're losing focus. We need to breathe. We need to concentrate. We need to find a focus point, and let's do this.
That's awesome.
So I try to tell them that anatomy and physiology lesson that I remember years ago, because it stuck with me when I had my kid. First, I wasn't going to go in there and embarrass myself. I don't know if you're familiar with West Indians, but especially Jamaicans, we got pride. We're not going to go nowhere and embarrass ourselves. So I'm like, I'm not going in there and embarrass myself, and they're going to be talking about me on the nursing floor. So I already knew the screaming wasn't even an option. So when I went in there, I just snapped in it. And I also, this is not going to work for everybody, but I also was like, hey, hopefully this time tomorrow, this will be all over. That's how I looked at it. For all three of my, 2 of my labors, 2 of my births, I'm like, oh, this time tomorrow it'll be over. And my oldest son, he came on his due date, no induction, no interference, no anything. That's just when he wanted to show up. And apparently what I learned at that time is that's very rare for your child to be born naturally on their due date with no induction, no interventions, no anything. I went in there, I'm like, hey, my contractions are close. My mucus plug is out. I think it's time. And I left with my son. And with my middle son, I bring this story up because I also use this as a teaching tool, because my second son was a completely different experience than my first son. I had back labor, which is a bitch. That is different. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it feels like somebody is taking a chainsaw from the back all the way up to your neck.
God.
The back there, everything's on fire. So I drove myself to the hospital because in New York, not everybody drives, not everybody needs a car. And his dad was like, oh, we'll take a cab. And I'm like, heck no, we're not taking a cab. I'm going to drive. You know how much a cab is going to cost? So I drive to the hospital, and, I'm in active labor at this point now. So I get there, the doctor checks me. He was like, oh, well, we're going to prep you for a C-section. Mind you, I'm in my early 20s. I had a perfectly fine pregnancy. My previous son, no problem. Pregnancy, no problem during the labor. And I'm like, excuse me, prep me for C-section for what? My son is going to be 17 in November. I promise you, till this day, I feel like the man gave me pushback to come back in the room because I refused to have a C-section. So imagine you being in active labor and a doctor does not want to come back in the room because you're refusing a C-section that I believe is unnecessary, because I literally just got there. I don't remember how far along I dilated I was, but his reasoning was my baby wasn't far down in the birth canal. He wasn't in the proper position. What I know now as a doula, I know that that can change at any minute, at any second, actually, especially with movement and positioning, that could change. Now, something in me is saying, oh, hell no, you're not about to cut me because I already know the recovery. I already know the process of a C-section. I already know the damage of a C-section, you know, and I know I already have a baby at home that needs me. So that wasn't going to work, you know? So I refused to. I'm like, no, we're not doing a C-section. Long story short, and my contractions are coming, a nurse is in the room, and I'm like, hey, can you get the doctor? And I remember her saying to me, like, oh, you know, they're going to prep you for a C-section. She even wanted to know, did I need help shaving so they could do the C-section? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm not having a C-section. So I said it to her again, can you call a doctor? And she was like, oh, well, I said, listen, go call a doctor. I didn't say it very nicely. I'm not going to say how I said it here, but it wasn't nice. And, you know, I'm your typical angry Black woman at this point now. You know, you're not listening to me. And now, yeah, you're not listening to me, but now I'm an angry Black woman when it's a reaction from your action, you know?
Or inaction.
So, and I'm a pregnant woman in labor.
Right.
And I'm a pregnant woman in labor, active labor. How dare you? So finally, the doctor comes in and he comes to check me. And you know how you peel the banana, you peel the skin and you're exposing the banana? I don't know why I have my ankles crossed like this. I don't know why. But as he opens my legs, my son is crowning. Okay? It looked like Saturday Night Live, the way the nurses and the doctor were running into each other because he refused to come back in. So now that I'm loud and crazy Jamaican lady, because now it's all type of blood clot and all of them stuff coming out now. Now they're coming in, you know, my white doctor is like, oh this lady's crazy. So now they're coming in and the room wasn't prepped at all. So now they're running into each other trying to grab stuff. The doctor literally caught my child with a gown draped over him. He didn't even have it on. They just shook it out and threw it over him. And the nurse held it at the back. And that's how he caught my son. And I say this all to say that I always tell my moms this because this is about intuition. This is about trusting your body. And then after I explain this whole story, I then say, Mom, ask me how long I was in the hospital before I gave birth to my son. Ask me how long I was in the hospital.
How long were you in the hospital before you gave birth to your son?
2 minutes, less than an hour.
And they were huge.
So why would I need a C-section?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Why would I need a C-section?
Yeah.
I got there at 8:30 and I had my son at 9:28.
Wow.
I got there at 8:30 in the morning and I had my son at 9:28. So that would have been an unnecessary procedure.
Right. More money.
And if I would have had that C-section, right. But it's not even I'm not even thinking about money. I'm talking about the wear and tear on my body.
I'm talking about
the recovery on my body.
C-section is bigger.
Right. And then you have to remember that there's some doctors that once you're cut, that's going to be your birth experience from here on out.
Right.
And don't let a doctor not give a damn about your Black body, because even up to 2025, we have seen C-sections performed that were like a butcher went in there, where you give birth again, and that could be your life.
Wow.
So, like, you know, it is mind blowing that somebody will want to perform a C-section, and I was only there 2 minutes short of an hour before I had my son.
Cool. So I had a lot of questions. You made a lot of great points, but we are absolutely running out of time. And not that I don't want to know these answers to these questions I have. This has been such an awesome educational opportunity. I'm really questioning if you lied to me about not being in the spotlight, because I mean, you're phenomenal. Like, the work you do, you can hear how passionate you are and how it has lined up literally to the point that your grandmother was a midwife in England, and you didn't know, but that is
I didn't know.
path you took and that the path that you
Right.
love. I love that for you. So we are going to move on. I'm going to reach out to you later because I do have it's just so many questions that came up. Your story was fascinating, but we want to know a little bit more about you outside of your work and outside of your parenting. So it is time for us to play Tea Time.
Okay.
So Tea Time is a game of rapid fire. I'll come up with a bunch of questions. Some are deep, some are just for fun. In this game, you will have 3 minutes to answer as many questions as you can and give us just a little bit more insight into who you are. So, Tiffany, are you ready?
Yes.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get the clock started. And we're ready. What is the last TV show or movie you binge watched?
On Netflix. Amazing. Love it. Black love. Powerful black man. Love it.
That was what we had yesterday too. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Mind reading.
Oh, that's a good one. Morning person or night owl?
Whenever I got something to do.
Whatever the Lord leads. What is your hidden talent?
I don't think I have one. I'm stumped. I don't think I have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can name a couple. But
Okay.
if you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Stay true to yourself.
Yes, I like that. Who is your celebrity crush?
Oh, man. But he's not alive anymore. Anybody who knows me knows I love Tupac. Oh, my God. Not, yeah.
He was fine, I'm going to tell you that. What's your comfort?
Listen, and it wasn't even about the looks. It was everything.
Everything. No, you got that. What's your comfort go-to food?
Anything Jamaican.
Right.
Jerk pork. Of course. Jerk pork all day.
All day. What tattoos will you never get over?
Procrastinating.
I'm bad at it.
That's my pet peeve.
That's probably why you've emailed me today. What's your guilty pleasure?
Road trips with music blasting.
Yes, I love that. 40 seconds. You're rocking through these questions. What's your dream vacation spot?
I would say it's between Cuba and exploring every country in Africa.
Nice.
I always said if I could win the lottery, I would do a reverse tour to where my family line. Do a reverse tour.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
We're going to count on that lottery. Which emoji do you use the most?
The one with the crazy eyes and the tongue hanging out, like, like the little dizzy look.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. I use that one a lot too. All right. Thank you for playing Tea Time. We learned a lot about you.
Thank you.
And your answers were freaking fun. If you ever make it to that tour, please let me know.
Listen.
I probably won't have the money, but maybe I can borrow a couple of your lottery dollars.
I'm taking everybody on that journey with me. I actually did a 48 state road trip in 2022. So we about that life, that road trip life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I thank you again for joining us. Before we go into our outro of the show, I would love to give you the floor back if you might have any encouraging words or inspirational quotes for our listeners today. They want to hear more. I promise you that.
Make your journey your own. And, the past makes us who we are at the present. But if your past is going to inhibit you from your future, then you need to tweak that a little bit. Our past doesn't have to define where we end up. We see that every day when we see people who've dropped out of high school, who are drug addicts, and then they become some phenomenal figure in the community or in the world. So if your past is solid and it helps build the character that you turn into, amazing. But if your past is going to inhibit you from your growth, then tweak it a little bit. You deserve it. Everybody deserves to be happy, and your children deserve the best version of yourself. Generational curses.
Thank you so much.
Generational curses. Let's end that. Generational trauma. Let's end that.
Right. Absolutely. What is next for you today? Do you have anything big coming up? Any more books coming out other than a translated version? And how can listeners connect with you?
I don't think I have any more books. As I said before, I don't like boring. I don't like routine. So I can say now I don't think I have anything coming up as book-wise, but who knows? Because I didn't think I was going to write this. But I do have an ebook that I wrote previously for my expecting parents and my freshly postpartum parents, just to help them understand the role of a doula and the importance and how we help the outcome of their birth experience. So that's the other ebook that I did write first. But my baby is So You're Ready to Hold Space, everything you need to know about birth work. So as I said before, it starts with that question, that feeling, that desire to be a doula, and I carry you through that journey to build your doula business and to run it.
Awesome.
But other than that, it's just birth work and being a mom. That's all I know.
And you're good at it. So that's all that matters right now. We will make sure to include that link in the comments so that if you are interested in holding space, you can have access to Tiffany's ebook.
Yes, please. We need you guys.
Yes. If you heard the story, you get it. You understand why.
Right.
So before we go, I have a couple more questions, but I have to thank you first. I know I've said thank you, but I truly, truly appreciate you coming to our platform and sharing your story, telling us who you are as a doula, sharing with us who you are as a parent, how the men in your life really shape who you are and who you are raising your sons to be. They sound phenomenal.
Right.
I'm sure if we had them on here, they would sing high praises to you because you are doing a phenomenal job. So thank you for coming on and sharing your recipe that some other people might not have had. We can take a little bit of what you gave to us and we can work it for our own parenting lives. So thank you.
Right.
I have 3 more questions.
Thank you for allowing me in your space. I appreciate it.
You are absolutely welcome. Absolutely welcome. I hope that you feel much more confident after you get to hear your wisdom that you've spoken because you truly are amazing. So thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is parenting hard, Tiffany?
Parenting can be hard, but you make it your own. You enjoy it. I tell people all the time, I think I spend most of my parenting laughing.
That's all.
Laughing is therapeutic. It gives you time to regroup and try again instead of losing your cool. So yeah, I definitely spent there was probably situations I shouldn't have laughed at that I laughed at.
I probably need to take a note from you. But are they still standing?
Right. Yes, they are. Standing tall, too taller than me.
Yes.
People be like, oh, how's the boys doing? I'm like, they're still here. They still breathing.
Yes. What do you want to proudly tell our guests today?
This mama is nailing it.
Nailing it and is. So listeners, if you like this episode and you want to hear more personal parenting stories, please subscribe to, let me say that again. Please subscribe to my social media. That is Nailed It Motherhood Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We're working on YouTube. I'm going to get there. I promise y'all. And don't forget, please follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You too can also be a guest on the podcast by completing a guest application. We love hearing from our moms, but we also love hearing from our dads too. The link is in the comments. We welcome your questions, comments, and your concerns. And we hope to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep on doing what it is that you do. Look
You're listening to Nailed It Motherhood Podcast.